You might think vertical potato towers or, those fancy bag systems are the future of backyard potato growing. But the truth, they often underperform compared to a simple old-school method you've probably overlooked, burying potatoes in a trench with proper soil layering and spacing. Most gardeners try vertical growing because it looks neat and promises space-saving yields. But here's the problem. When you stack soil and plant in a confined tower, roots get crowded, water distribution becomes uneven, and nutrient flow is compromised. The result is smaller tubers, uneven growth, and, honestly, wasted effort. In fact, I've seen raised potato towers produce half the harvest of a properly prepared trench with the same number of seed potatoes. Before we dive into the trench method, there's a small tool that I use in every potato bed to avoid common mistakes: a 4-in-1 soil moisture meter, digital plant temperature and soil moisture test, pH meter, and sunlight intensity meter. This tool is a real game changer for potatoes because soil moisture and temperature fluctuations directly affect tuber development. Overwatering can rot seeds, while underwatering stunts growth. Uneven pH can lock up nutrients and reduce yield. By checking soil conditions with this meter, I can see exactly where adjustments are needed. I'll leave the exact one I use in the description if you want to check it out. Now let's talk a bit about the core problem. Vertical systems create compacted roots and uneven water retention. Potato roots, they really thrive in loose, friable soil where they can expand freely, but vertical towers or small containers often compress the soil as you add layers, and that leaves pockets of air and dry zones. Tubers form poorly in these conditions, so you end up with small, lumpy potatoes rather than those large, uniform harvests we're all after. The trench method solves this. Here's how I do it. I dig a trench about 15 to 20 centimeters deep and 30 centimeters wide, depending on the soil type. Loose, fertile soil is key, so I mix in composted organic matter or well-aged manure to create a nutrient-rich base. The trench acts as a root-friendly reservoir that supports both water retention and tuber expansion. I plant seed potatoes 10 to 15 centimeters apart, cut side down, making sure each piece has a healthy eye. After planting, I cover with about 5 centimeters of loose soil, then I monitor moisture using the 4-in-1 meter. Keeping the soil evenly moist but not waterlogged prevents seed rot and encourages strong root growth. Over the season, I gradually hill soil over the growing stems, creating layers that tubers can develop in while still maintaining loose soil around them. Spacing and soil texture are critical here. In vertical systems, roots are forced into confined soil, which leads to competition and, small tubers. In a trench, even with the same number of seed potatoes, each plant has room to branch and develop multiple tubers of uniform size. I've tested this in backyard beds, raised beds, and even large containers, and the trench method consistently outyields vertical setups. Another common mistake I see gardeners make is neglecting soil temperature and pH monitoring. Potatoes are sensitive to cool, wet soil and pH extremes. This is where the soil meter comes in handy again. I check temperature, moisture and pH weekly to make sure the trench environment is optimal. If the soil is too cool, I cover the trench with black fabric to raise temperature slightly. If the pH drifts too low or high, I adjust with lime or sulfur. This small attention to detail dramatically improves yield and tuber quality. Let's talk about irrigation. Many gardeners over-rely on vertical tower systems for water management, assuming that because soil is layered, water will naturally distribute. In reality, water moves unevenly in towers. Trench planting allows for even water distribution across the base of each plant, ensuring that roots and developing tubers receive consistent moisture. I water deeply once or twice a week, depending on rainfall, and always verify with the moisture meter. This prevents both drought stress and waterlogging, which are major causes of tuber deformities. Another trick I use, which a lot of people tend to overlook, is adding a thin layer of mulch after the first hilling. Mulch really helps conserve moisture, it regulates temperature, and it suppresses weeds without restricting root expansion. In vertical setups, mulch usually just sits on top of compacted layers and honestly has pretty limited effect. But in a trench, it actually creates a microclimate that benefits both the roots and the developing tubers. I usually go for straw, shredded leaves, or well-composted organic matter as mulch. A big advantage of trench planting is, well, the flexibility it offers in crop rotation and soil health management. After harvest, you can fill those trenches with fresh compost or amended soil to get ready for the next season, and that naturally improves soil fertility over time. Vertical towers, on the other hand, are often limited in space and can concentrate disease pressure if the soil isn't refreshed properly. Trench systems are just simple, scalable, and pretty easy to manage season after season. If you're experimenting with containers or raised beds, you can actually adapt the trench principle. Just create a loose soil pocket at the base of the bed, plant your seed potatoes with a bit of spacing, and then gradually hill soil over the stems as they grow. Even if you're working with hydroponic or semi-soilless media, the principle of providing plenty of loose space for root and tuber expansion, well, it dramatically improves yield compared to vertical stacking systems. One tip I can't stress enough: monitor regularly. Use the 4-in-1 soil meter to check moisture, temperature, and pH. Tubers will respond quickly to small changes, and early detection of a problem prevents crop loss. For example, I once had a raised bed trench that started drying unevenly due to wind exposure. The meter highlighted low moisture zones, and I corrected it immediately with targeted watering. Without it, the yield would have dropped by at least 30%. Finally, let's bust one more myth. Potatoes always need deep soil to grow big. The truth is, it's not just depth, it's loose, nutrient-rich soil around the developing tubers. A 15 to 20 centimetre trench filled with composted soil and properly spaced seed potatoes gives more consistent results than a 60 centimetre vertical tower where roots are compressed. Depth alone doesn't solve nutrient and moisture distribution issues. Careful trench preparation does. The trench method is low cost, easy to implement, and it consistently outyields vertical growing systems when applied correctly. Pairing it with regular soil monitoring using a 4-in-1 meter really ensures tubers develop in optimal conditions. From backyard gardens to raised beds and containers, this technique is scalable and repeatable, giving gardeners more reliable yields without those expensive vertical setups. So before you buy another tower or vertical system, maybe consider returning to this simple, effective trench method. Just loosen your soil, space your seed potatoes, hill gradually, monitor with the soil meter, and mulch. You'll see better tuber size, higher yields, and honestly, fewer problems than most vertical systems can provide. Serious gardening is really about understanding soil, observing how plants respond, and applying methods that actually work. Trench planting for potatoes is a perfect example of combining simple techniques with careful monitoring to maximize results. If you want more tested, practical strategies for soil health, backyard vegetable growing, and methods that actually increase yields, go ahead and subscribe to Farm Logic. Share this video with a friend who's trying vertical potato towers and show them how a simple trench can outperform complicated setups season after season. Your harvest, your soil, and your wallet will thank you.